Welcome to the 5V podcast. Today I'm joined by Evgeni Gousev. Evgeni is the TinyML Foundation chairman and also senior director at Qualcomm Technologies Incorporated. Evgeni, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom, for inviting us here. Really excited about the conversation.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it as well. So I guess as a way for just kicking off and getting into it, I know a lot about TinyML Foundation. I've heard of it for quite a while. For our viewers and listeners that don't know you or the foundation, can you give a quick overview as to what that is?
Yeah, well, there are two parts of this. One is the TinyML technology. Maybe I'll talk about the TinyML technology a bit first, just for those who are not familiar, and then we'll talk about the foundation. So TinyML technology, we define it very broadly as a set of hardware tools, software tools, algorithms, neural networks, and kind of use cases, basically end-to-end, that can address machine intelligence at the very edge, at the boundary of the physical world and the digital world. And what is the key here, and what is cool about TinyML technology, all this machine intelligence can happen at extremely low power. Like the power numbers are below 1 milliwatt. That's kind of the bar we set at the foundation collectively. And this is extremely challenging on one hand from the technology perspective, because getting there compared to the state of the art, you really need to innovate and reduce your power and everything like by a factor of 100 or factor of 1,000. So that's on the technology side. But then once you have this type of capability, it opens up a lot of things in terms of use cases and doing a broad range of applications in the battery operated space. So that's kind of very broadly how we define TinyML. It's basically machine learning at extremely low power that has a lot of implications there. And it's very kind of primitive, naive definition, but it just to calibrate the audience on this. And yeah. And second, on the foundation, TinyML Foundation, formally speaking, it's a non-profit organization with the mission to drive TinyML technologies into applications and basically to grow the TinyML pie, what I call, and the pie is growing big as we speak. And the pie includes, again, all kind of things there. But it's really connecting technology, connecting science, connecting knowledge to the values. And I'm really glad to be on this podcast, because I think your new brand addresses some of these values. It's the 5V. I mean, probably there are more than 5Vs in general, but I think it's really great to connect technology to values. That's kind of the piece that we technologists miss quite often, because we are really so busy kind of being nerdy and developing things, but connecting them to the values. That's I think is super important these days. And that's basically what TinyML Foundation is trying to do, is really connect technology to all these values in a broad way. That's kind of the formal definition. And effectively, we are a global community. We are a global ecosystem, and I think we'll talk about this in a little bit of more length during this conversation. But it's a global community of tens of thousands of people, very passionate and enthusiastic about TinyML, and it's very diverse. And I think we'll talk about this too. And that's who we are. And our mission is, and our vision is. The way we see our world evolving, the vision statement of the TinyML Foundation is we see a new world with trillions of smart devices, tiny devices enabled by TinyML that sense and act together autonomously to create a better environment and healthier environment and sustainable environment for all of us. So it's a very powerful mission and vision statements, because we are connecting again technology to this huge opportunity, but we do it for the sake of values to make a better world for us. And it's not a science fiction. That's what happens in the TinyML world, and we'll cover some details as we speak.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Evgeni, for that. I really appreciate the overview. Absolutely monumentally important, the work that you're doing, and what the foundation is looking to do. And I appreciate you linking it back to the 5V podcast and our 5 values. And certainly we'll deep dive into why this is so important from a society point of view and a humanitarian point of view about what the overall mission and vision is. Just for our listeners and viewers, a bit of a background on yourself. So obviously you've got extensive experience in a range of industries and technologies. Aside from the TinyML, you're also senior director at Qualcomm. What kind of spurred you on into this field? How did you get into this to start with? What's your history, Evgeni?
Yeah, I think kind of deep at my heart, I am a technologist or a scientist who like doing really cool, disruptive things with an impact, kind of very, very meaningful things. Historically, and I've been in this field for over, I don't know how many years. It's kind of stopped counting at some point, probably over 25 years or so. We've been really doing very hard, challenging problems, or like a mission impossible type of problems, but then they have a huge impact. I mean, I'm proud of many things I've done in my professional life. For example, one of them is like every cell phone people carry on the planet today has a technology that my team and I developed back in IBM. So it gives me kind of a bit of professional pride. The impact part of this, but the problem itself when we started this, was extremely technically challenging. How to develop high-K dielectrics, the kind of a lot of materials-related issues, device-related issues, ecosystem-related issues. But like in 5 years, we kind of got it solved, and now we see this massive impact. That's kind of sort of like my DNA, what I like doing in my professional life, and it starts deeply from the basic science, from the basic knowledge, because I used to be a professor early in my professional life, so I deeply appreciate academic research and what happens there. I have a lot of fun working with the academia and with students. We have summer interns here, so that's kind of gives me a lot of joy working with them, and kind of the fresh blood for fresh ideas. So, but I really appreciate this kind of the whole food chain, if you wish, so starting from basic knowledge, from idea, from brainstorming, and taking this all the way to products with an impact. And that's what my team also does here at Qualcomm. So we really start kind of early in the ideation, but then we take it all the way to product and work with customers. And I think kind of we're quite unique in this way, kind of seeing not just kind of one piece, like one line of code. You really start kind of from a bright idea that is impossible at the beginning. You have a team of smart people around you. You work with external people, partners, and at the end you make it happen. You take it all the way. And kind of there is a similar type of history with TinyML Foundation. We started a TinyML project in Qualcomm back in 2014, when basically there was no TinyML, there was no ML even there before CNNs and other things. They were just becoming on the horizon. And that was a project always on computer vision. Back then, the state of the art was like about 500 milliwatts. If you want to do computer vision, you take a picture, you send it to the cloud, you do classification analysis there. We thought, wow, this is inefficient. Can we do it like 100 times smaller, like at 1 milliwatt? And it was like a completely crazy idea. But then in a year, we got the visibility done, and then we start building our first products. But then we realized that the opportunity is huge, but we are kind of one of the first pioneers there. So you really need to build this kind of ecosystem. So we started to talk to our customers, to some partners, some of them at Google, like Pete Warden and ARM and in academic people. And we thought, let's kind of do something about this, because it starts with the vision, right? And our vision was just like our vision statement earlier. So the technology became back then capable of solving this type of thing. So we see this kind of bright future ahead, and it's obviously the best to team up with the brightest minds on the planet to make this vision happen, right? And that's kind of how the foundation started back in 2019 with a group of software and hardware companies. And from the very beginning, we laid down kind of the DNA of this foundation to be deeply technical, to be kind of an end-to-end type of community, starting from software, or starting from basically devices and transistors, and going all the way to applications, kind of full stack, end to end. So we that's on the technical side, and then on the community culture, on the community spirit side, from the very beginning, we said it's going to be a non-profit type of thing, all inclusive. Diversity is going to be one of our cornerstones there. So we really started with diversity in all kind of ways. It's geographical diversity, topics diversity, beginners, experts, genders, all kind of things there. So I think I am a strong believer that any ecosystem as strong as a diversity is. Like look at the Amazon. I mean, it's a very powerful ecosystem, and the diversity is a key there. So those kind of things, and these ideas and these kind of principles of the foundation, they resonated really well. So we started small when we started our first event, and we had our kind of founder meeting there. We said, well, if we get 30 people in the room, that would be a success. Like in a month, when we spread the word out, just by the word of mouth, we didn't even publicize it. Like we had 200 people knocking our door. We say, wow, that kind of a good validation that it's the right time for this type of thing. And then from then on, it's been growing really great. So again, today we are in tens of thousands in any type of dimensions in terms of number of people, company supported, and this is fueled by really all this opportunity that people see. I mean, on one hand, we have this technology capability that is becoming more mature, both the hardware devices, software tools, algorithms, everything is kind of coming together. But then we see a whole zoo of the opportunities, and both on the commercial side and for good side that are coming there, and that resonates really well. That kind of what fuels this growth of this community. It's the principles, being kind of open, transparent, diverse, focus on values, and then the opportunity that we see ahead. And it's not like a 20-year type of horizon. This opportunity is like today. So like people can develop TinyML applications and make a difference all over the world today. And that's what is happening. That's why we're super excited about it.
Well, thank you so much for the overview. I think you yourself have a fantastic background, but I think what resonates for me and why I was so keen to get you on the podcast is the fact that you're really values and principle driven, right? You talk about the values and principles here, and I guess what I wanted to go on to was to talk about the impact of TinyML and how we actually connect technology to real problems. We've spoken offline and in the brief talking around the 3 pillars of impact: commercial, social, and AI and data democratization as such, right? How we work on those 3 levels. Could you go into those and talk about the aims, what you've done so far, and what you hope to do within those 3 pillars?
Yeah. So thank you, Tom, for asking this, because these days that's kind of what keeps me up at night is this huge opportunity on the impact side of things. Because when I started research on TinyML back at Qualcomm, I was super excited about the technology part of it. It was very challenging, very interesting, multidisciplinary, a lot of bright people. So that was kind of my first wave of excitement, was more on the technology side. So when we started the foundation, then I was really blown away by the power of the community and this global ecosystem. Like there is just so much energy there, and we'll talk about this also in a moment. People coming to us with all kind of interesting ideas, how to make things better, bigger, all this that type of thing. So I think that was my kind of second wave of excitement, was on the community, on the ecosystem side. But then the more I started thinking about this, is like we have the technology which is there, which is ready, and it's a very kind of low bar to use type of technology for people, low bar, low cost, right? So it's very affordable and it's very powerful in terms of capabilities. Then we have this huge community of people, and just like to give you an idea on the scale, we have TinyML EDU branch of TinyML, which basically focus on educational activities and governed by the academic advisory board, and there are many distinguished professors there. One of them is Professor Vijay Reddy from Harvard, and they started TinyML EDU class, EDX class, And in a year, this class, it's an online class, it's a certificate type of class, it's being enrolled by 70,000 students in a year.
Wow,
So
1 year.
can you imagine that people are learning, there is so much interest to learn TinyML, and these people are going into the workforce, right? You have the tools, you have the technology, you have this talent coming. Like really, the way I see kind of our job now at the TinyML Foundation, how do you connect the technology, all these great capabilities that TinyML companies are developing with this enormous talent that like these newcomers, like 70,000 students, and then the big companies and startups, how do you connect them together and start making a difference, start making the impact? And talking the impact, that was a bit of a long introduction to your question. That's my third way of excitement now in TinyML. It's on the impact side of things. Obviously, the technology is continuing, the community is growing, but really, how do you connect these two? And the way I see it, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just going to mention 70,000 people enrolling is a colossal number for something which is new, with hardly any at that time marketing and PR. And what do you put that down to, Evgeni? Like, because that's staggering, isn't it? Why do you think so many people enrolled so soon?
Yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a side question. I think we'll get to the impact because that's kind of a very interesting one. But I think what you ask is also interesting because, like, what did we do? I mean, effectively, we did nothing. We didn't have like any commercials on NBC doing Super Bowl type of thing, right? Like, hey, guys, go and join TinyML. We just basically did a couple of things. I think when we started the foundation, our kind of goal in the first 2 years was build the awareness, because back then in 2018 people didn't know what it is and if it's possible or not. And I think we spent quite a bit of time really kind of promoting the awareness, like this is possible. And when you talk to people, like both engineer type of people, non-engineer type of people, you show them this tiny device. I should have it somewhere here. I should have prepared it like for my what we can Qualcomm here. That blows their mind away. Like, wow, is this possible? And I think this is kind of the wow moment of yeah, I got it.
So that's so for our listeners, you need to hop onto YouTube if you want to see what Evgeni's got in his hand right now.
So I don't know if people can even see this. So this tiny device.
Okay, yeah. So
this is a TinyML device for always-on computer vision. So when you show it people, so this thing is effectively a camera and AI engine inside that can do all this device analytics, count people, do your face detection, and do all the good things. It really blows people's mind away. That's basically was the wow factor, what created this type of momentum. And then, I mean, it's more than wow factor. Like, hey, people say, yeah, that's cool, but how do I get involved? For this, you really need to prepare educational materials, development boards. We have companies in a TinyML ecosystem who are really good in kind of doing development kits, development boards, people doing the educational program, and that kind of creates this huge, massive snowball effect there. So, but kind of back to your question, it's just really sharing the vision, sharing actually the values there too, because when you show people like, hey, you can use the thing, and we'll talk about this also in a moment, and that can change things around you in a very positive way. That's massive in impact. And just also, I was also like every time I see the thing, I'm I don't know. I don't believe that what is happening, but it is happening. Like for example, we had TinyML vision content last year, and it was like we did it with Hackstars. Like the idea there was like, what can you do with this type of devices for vision type of applications? And there was a lot of cool ideas there, like 5 finalists, and I think we gave one honorary recognition to a team of kids from Toronto, and they were from 5 to 9 years old. So these kids, they developed their own TinyML application basically from scratch, with some parents' supervision, minimal, but that kind of gives an idea like how easy it is to do it if 5 to 9 years old kids can develop their own application, and they come up with an application that solves their own problem, right? Their problem was this application was TinyML birth feeder. So basically the application there is when you feed birds, there are squirrels coming and they're eating birds' food. And they wanted to create a computer vision type of application using TinyML that classifies birds and squirrels differently, right? So it's a very, very interesting use case, solving their particular problem, mostly for fun, but it shows like that they work on this for about a month, and they come up with all kind of, I saw the picture, they have industrial designs on napkins and those kind of things, 5 people, and then come up with this type of thing. So that's kind of the power of using this type of technology, and companies do this type of thing. So that's how it's happening. And we are at TinyML Foundation. We are steering this. We are helping this. So as I said, the first 2 years we focused on building awareness, building brands. So now everyone knows about TinyML. People know how to do it. This type of things. So now we realize the next kind of frontier for us is more on applications and use cases and end users. So now I think that the foundation focused most of the energy these days on connecting technology to end users, to applications. How do you educate them? Basically what we did 2-3 years ago, educating technological community. How do you educate now end users? How do we connect businesses with all these opportunities? And there are already many examples. We can talk about this later there. So, but back to your questions on the impact, and we'll probably dive into the impact one by one. The way I see it personally, there are 3 or 4 areas where impact is massive and transformational. One is obviously in the commercial space. So how do you apply TinyML technologies to make things smarter, better? And this is a huge opportunity because it's all about digitization of our kind of world. I think we're all kind of getting more into the digital space. How do you digitize things? How do you make your industries more digital? How do you make it actionable? And that's basically what TinyML offers, right? Like, for example, one TinyML company, I think it's a public now, it's Shoreline IoT here in the Bay Area. They work with one of the major gas supplier in the US company, and they put TinyML devices on gas lines in the US, basically throughout all the US. And by doing this kind of real-time analytics, they can do quite a bit of anomaly detection and predictive maintenance. So they basically know like what happens with the gas lines. So it's a huge value for people who use it on the commercial side. So you're saving a lot of money in terms of doing predictive maintenance and so on. So that's kind of the commercial opportunity. So like, how do you digitize things and make them actionable? And we see a lot of examples in logistics, warehouses, retail. So it's a massive opportunity in all of these verticals, and it's all about data. So that's kind of one angle. So the other big angle of this, and again, we'll dive on this. I'm just going to list them, and we can dive in all of them one by one in a second. So the second big one is TinyML for good. So I think, and that's kind of where we have a good synergy with your organization doing values. How do we kind of do planet first and then profit second, right? So that's the TinyML for good, basically. So because again, the unique things about TinyML, that TinyML is intimately and ultimately connected to the planet. So you can put all the sensors everywhere, and you can do things, soil control, agriculture control, all this type of things, and tons of examples there. And again, that's the value of the community there too. Like when we talk to folks, like for example in Africa, they see all these problems around them, and environmental and other things. So that's the for good pillar, which has another 3 sub pillars. It's healthcare, STEM, and sustainability. So that's the kind of second one. And the third part of impact is AI democratization, which is even more massive and transformational than the first 2, because today the way AI happens, it's all data driven, right, and tool driven, and the tools and the data belong today to the big companies, to 3, 4, 5 big companies in the world, and they kind of monetize it the way they want it, and then other people just do it for hire. So TinyML gives this unique opportunity to give the tools and the data back to people who own them. So, and that is a huge one in terms of potential, how people can do things, can do their businesses without all these dependencies, and kind of the whole value equation moves back to people, not to the kind of to the giant corporations who who own and basically take advantage of this disproportionately. So I'm a dreamer, but that's kind of, I hope that this will be a big driver for kind of building or bridging this digital divide and kind of giving technology back to people who can use it and who can monetize it. So that's why I'm so passionate about the impact of TinyML these days. It's the commercial opportunities, it's for good opportunities, and it's the AI democratization. I mean, those are huge.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the overview, Evgeni, and you can see that the passion kind of pours out from you when you talk about it, right? Which I think is such a great thing. And it's rare that you've got something that has those three pillars and that can cover them in such a good way. You know, commercial, the democratization of the data, you know, the for good aspect, which is something that we're very keen on here within the business. And you went back to the example at the start about the squirrel, etc., and their camera detection, and I think, you know, you've got some really kind of interesting use cases, but you sometimes need those, right, so that other people can actually say, oh, hey, that's a good idea, we could use that for X, right? And you have this kind of domino effect where people start implementing TinyML in lots of different ways that perhaps no one ever thought that might be possible or could be a fix at the start. I wanted to dive in a little bit more into the for good aspect for you and what that means. So you spoke a little bit about the digital divide as well, and you know, and being able to level that out somewhat, right? And I'd be curious to know more about that and why that's important to you and also to the foundation.
Well, there are two separate ones. One is the for good, and the other one is on the democratization side. So let's start with the for good. We all know that we are in big trouble, right? Like as a planet. I mean, the population grows, pollutions grow. We are kind of in the nobody is disputing the climate change anymore. It's kind of obvious. People experience it every year with their skin. Wildfires in California, heat waves in London this year, right? So like it's obvious. I think that we have a problem that needs to be solved. And the problem there is it comes at different levels. It's like how do you monitor things and how do you make them actionable, but also how do we reduce energy consumption, for example. I was participating at a great workshop at MIT a few months back, and there was a research done at MIT. They basically saying, and it also kind of blows me away. If you think about it, the way they were saying, the way AI and IT technologies progress in terms of energy consumption and the volume, by 2040, and 2040 is what, 17, 18 years from now, all the energy produced in the world today and extrapolated back then in 2040 will be going just to feed the AI machines. That's insane. That's crazy. We'll have no energy to have electricity in your house or microwave or anything like this, right? So we'll be all kind of feeding the machines, and that's a huge problem on its own. For example, that's where TinyML comes to play. So basically, the message from this MIT panel was, for us to be sustainable, we need to reduce this by a factor of million, how we do things. So TinyML at least allows to do it by a factor of 1,000. That's kind of a huge step in this direction, but even there, we are not there yet, right? So it's like, how do we go about digitizing the whole world and making it smarter without killing ourselves, right? Because it could be like a suicidal thing, like, hey, we want to be all living in a smart world. For this, we need to have technologies and energy and everything, right? We produce this, but then, well, there is no smart place to live. We basically killed ourselves, right? So that's I think we need to be super mindful about things. And the big problem there is also in mindset. Like when people design these huge models to compute, machine learning models to compute, they basically assume that all these compute resources are free, and they take it for granted. Well, I can develop this huge model. I can train it for a month, 2 months, 3 months with a lot of data. I'm going to get a cool result either for my company product or to publish a paper, and and then just I'm good, right? But we need to think about this, like what do I do to the planet in a big way? For example, I think there was a study done at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and they say that it varies from model to model, but like if you train a model, your carbon footprint for this is 5x of a lifetime of a car. So basically, to train one model, you basically produced as much carbon as your car driven for the whole lifetime, whatever, 10 years. That's insane, right? So that's, I think we really need to think collectively, how do we reduce this? This is kind of on the energy side. And then kind of talking about consequences, how do you monitor all of things like what we're doing there? It's the how do you monitor wildfires? How do you monitor all the weather patterns? Like for example, we have a joint project now as we speak. It's happening with UN, United Nations IT organization. It's a smart weather station. So apparently, if you look at the weather stations in the world, Europe, America are reasonably well covered, but the whole Africa and other parts of the world, they have like white. There is no monitoring there. So I think we kind of put this challenge there. How do you design a system powered by TinyML that can monitor some extreme conditions without moving parts? It's like rain, wind, temperature, and other type of things. So that's kind of where TinyML can play a big role. The other one is kind of closing all these feedback loops, because we know that, for example, many industries are not efficient, like when you do agriculture, irrigation, like we're wasting a lot of water in one places. We're not kind of getting enough of water in other places. So how do you make sure you control these conditions precisely, right? So that's kind of the area where you can have quite easy feedback mechanism happening with moisture sensors and temperature sensors and other type of things, and you can do it in a smart way. Like one example there, we have one company in Arizona. They gave a presentation at TinyML for Good summit last year. They have a farm, actually winery in Arizona. I didn't really know that it's possible there because it's just too hot there. And the way they do it in a smart kind of way, they've been able to reduce their water consumption, if I remember it correctly, by a factor of like almost like a half. And again, this is a huge one if you do it at the massive scale, right? And other examples are water wells, dry water wells. Like a lot of them are going dry because there is no monitoring. People just suck water out of the earth, and they have no clue like what they're doing, right? This type of example. So it's really another one is, for example, retail, specifically groceries. About 30% of groceries are getting spoiled because they don't do kind of transportation, temperature control, humidity control. So these things can be done also with TinyML. So kind of a lot of opportunities on the sustainability, on the monitoring, climate, this type of things. Then I think the other pillar of TinyML for Good is healthcare, especially in the parts of the world where people don't have access to good healthcare. So you can do a lot of wearable, hearable type of TinyML devices, helping people to monitor their conditions and effectively to be their own doctor with some applications, or to be able to effectively communicate your kind of state of your condition to doctors. Like some examples, elderly care, right? You can put TinyML devices just like what I show here, private type of devices in hospitals and elderly care type of places, and you can monitor people's conditions, their fall, temperatures, all kind of things are there. So it's kind of massive opportunity because you can do it so like seamlessly at extremely low power and in a very, very intelligent way. And last but not least is STEM. I think as UN identified one of the 17 sustainability goals, it's really in education. And I think that's kind of where the impact and the value will be quite massive. You give these tools and technologies to people in the parts of the world that have no access to this technology. and it creates again a lot of opportunities there. So again, TinyML for good is really kind of my number one passion these days, because I can see clearly, I can see a path of these things is happening, because we have the technology which is mature, which is affordable, it can be scalable. We have this talent all over the world, and again, you talk to different people, they see TinyML solutions through different prisms, through their own prisms, right? And quite often it's the for good prism, and I think we're going to see a lot of examples there in this space.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it resonates a lot with me. You know, one of the reasons why we rebranded this podcast and our wider business is because if you're not doing something for good, then you're kind of part of the problem, really, if you're not actually trying to fix it in some way. And I think we all kind of have to own up to doing that to some degree. And I think some of the use cases that you're talking about there, but specifically, and I'm reading from your website, you know, the on-device sensor data analytics at extremely low power, right? So the ability for the sensors to do this is astronomical, because you can put them into forests to early detection of wildfires. You can do that from tracking of freight, monitoring, loads of different aspects. And I think our viewers and listeners need to be reminded that the sheer waste and indulgence that there is when it comes to shipping food and water and freight, and just, you know, it's staggering how much we waste as a planet, right? And by having just an understanding or a way of trying to fix that, like you said about the farm in Arizona, right? Just producing or using less water can make a colossal difference. I guess what I'm excited about is what could we do if we link everything together, right? So we get all this data, we link all of these sensors from all of these different use cases, and that had a synergetic effect. You know, there's extreme power in that as well, Evgeni, potentially, right? If we could bring all of this together.
Yeah, you're making an excellent point, Tom. I think definitely there is a huge synergistic effect, and there is a huge networking type of effect, because it's not like you're solving one problem. I mean, one problem solves another type of problem, and it's kind of becomes kind of, you're getting deep into the people's mindset. Instead of people thinking that things are for free, kind of you need to think that we live in a world, in a growing world in terms of population with constrained resources. So the question is, how do we utilize these resources in a smart way, right? Like this farm in Arizona, right? Or like another TinyML example. It's also kind of one of my early favorite ones. It's a farm, a bee farm in Kenya. So they developed TinyML solutions called iBees. That's the company name. So they basically put TinyML devices. It's accelerometers, gyros, temperature sensors, vision and audio type of sensors inside of the beehive. And by doing so, they can have a closed feedback loop, monitor the state of their bee family there. Because in Kenya, apparently, I didn't know this, honey business is a big business. Like about 90,000 people are involved. Farms, it's probably more than people. And their pain point is there is a 30% loss every year. And this loss comes from two sources. One is people's activity, basically people stealing things and kind of doing some intrusions, and also the kind of some diseases, like if there is a disease in the bee family, it's not good, right? So by using this type of feedback loop, you can cut this back 30% big time, and again, it has a massive impact. So it's tons of examples like this. Just give the technology to people and they will find a problem to solve them, and it will be for good and also for the commercial thing, like this. I be in Kenya, there is a commercial angle there, and there is an obviously for good aspect there. But again, it's more like also the main side mindset, because before people were not even thinking this is possible. You can tell them, hey, this is possible. Just think about this. Imagine if you use this, connect this to this, what kind of impact it's going to have around you. And that's kind of what we're trying to do in terms of kind of connecting these dots, the capabilities with the problems, and tell people it's doable, and also promoting all these kind of examples, like these guys did this, and make all these connections in the network. Kind of there is a huge power of the network effect here, which we don't fully utilize yet. It's enormous, kind of when you think about this globally.
No, I completely agree, and you've said that really well. Actually, I think it's a strong and diverse ecosystem. and the power of working together. And this is the beauty of having the foundation. It's not for profit. It's out here to do something special and to leave a legacy of sorts. I'd be interested to explain to some of our developers and engineers listening how they get started, right? How do they find out more about the foundation? How can they have an impact in what it's looking to achieve?
Yeah, we continue doing a lot of educational materials, just kind of to teach people how to do it, and also to give an overview and some examples, like what we're doing. Just some of them. I think every week we have TinyML talk series, like when people present their latest and greatest. Once a month we have TinyML Trailblazer series, where we basically share success stories. We had one yesterday that was very interesting. So then we have a lot of educational activities, like we do workshops. I think this year we did already 3. One was on AutoML tools. Like, for example, there are many AutoML tools, and those are the tools that allow people, some of them, like, they even claim it's a no-code type of tools. Basically, you don't need to be a programmer to do TinyML. And there are like a dozen of companies who presented their products, and some of these products are actually free to use. And this is all available online because we are a very open community. So basically, we share everything openly, basically immediately. So you can imagine like 12 companies doing AutoML tools. Like, you don't need to be a fancy programmer to be this type of thing. So all you need to think about, like, hey, I have a problem to solve, I have some data to do it, and then this company is this tool to help you. So we did one on device learning sometime a couple of months ago. Then we're doing neuromorphic now, a lot of kind of educational activities. Then we have formal programs like this EDX certificate, that is Coursera certificate type of programs. So it can be kind of done completely for free if you don't want to get a certificate, but if you want to be certified, you complete this course, and typically those courses are about like 4 to 6 weeks, kind of different programs, we have different things there, and then we have information there on the website there. So you can pay some nominal fee if you get a certificate. Then there are many companies, developers, they offer their development kits, and also they have their own training TinyML program. So if you want to have a specific company, specific hardware there, they will also teach you there. So that's basically the thing is there. So you can think basically this is there and almost for free for developers to use. So just kind of use your imagination and think like how I can solve a problem around me, or if I can start a company that can use TinyML as one of the kind of enabling type of technology. Or if you're already working for a big company, you can think like, hey, that's kind of the way I do my project, my business today. But if I use it in a TinyML way, maybe I can increase productivity, reduce costs, reduce carbon footprint. So it's all there, and then I think if you're really interested to get sort of like a jump start on TinyML and have like a speed dating type of participation, we do in-person events. We do in-person events all over the world through meetups, but then we have 3 major events happening every year in different parts of the world. We have in the spring we have TinyML Summit. It's here in the Bay Area, so this is probably the best place to come and really get exposure. Like in 2 days, you will learn not everything, but a lot. There will be a lot of things to digest, and you'll meet with all the companies there. You can make this instantaneous connections with people, where people show demos, their products on the floor. Then we have TinyML EMEA. Europe, Middle East, and Africa event happening also annually, and TinyML Asia. Those are kind of the big flagship events, and we have a lot of virtual events. So just the easiest is to go to tinyml.org. You'll see a calendar of events there, all the materials there. You can shoot email to me at evgeni@tinyml.org. I can kind of direct you. We have TinyML organization staff who can help you with this type of thing. It's like, I think the bottleneck is is your imagination, and there is no limit there. So
Yeah.
you can dream about this. And again, by design and by philosophy, we do that. Most of our activities are free, and it's thanks to our strategic partners and sponsors. That's kind of how we have the feedback there. People, companies see the value in what we're doing. They provide some support, and this support goes back to the community through this free programs. Like a lot of activities to be involved in. And again, kind of my message, kind of high level message today that I would like to leave here is the technology is solid, the capabilities are there, it's a low cost, all these tools are available, hardware tools, development kits. So again, it's quite mature. So think about how you can use this technology to do things for you, for your community, for your neighborhood, for your company, for your business. What kind of problems you can solve by using this type of technologies, and basically make a better world for all of us, and maybe also make a good business for yourself by doing this type of thing. So that's kind of the time where we are. So again, 2 years ago, like can it be done? Can it not be done? Now it's basically it's checked. It's done. It's massive. It's low cost. There are many people doing this kind of things. Many companies providing. The supply chain is growing, so it's getting mature. It's really how do you connect it now to all these opportunities, to the impact, and do it in a way we discuss it. So we create the value in a very broad sense, both the commercial value, but also the for good value for all of us, and make a kind of the planet first and the profit second type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for all of that, the overview and how people can get involved. I think it's really great that you are so passionate about it being for a good aspect, but it encompasses quite a lot of things. I started the question for our developers and engineers listening, how can they get involved? But I think from a career prospect as well, actually, machine learning, embedded at the edge, embedded machine learning, these types of technologies, this is the way it's going, this is the way the market is developing. So big business are involved with this. Your meetup group has 12,000 members, right? It's flying, and I think you have the chance to learn new skills with like-minded people working on something that has a real feel-good and environmental factor, and work with some really bright people and do some good stuff. So I think it's kind of a win-win for everyone, and for more people to get involved in the foundation. And as you say, it's non-for-profit, right? And you very kindly shared your details and where people can get involved. We'll drop it in the comments as well, and when we post this out online, so that people can see. And in fact, by the time this is going out, you would have just had your event in Cyprus as well, right? So you would have had quite a lot of things going on from that. In terms of the future, and I guess just to wrap up today, Evgeni, we always want to know where people are going in the future, where the business is going. It's always an interesting question, because I kind of feel like we should look back at this in the future and say, were we right? Were we wrong? What was that like? But where do you think the potential for TinyML to be in the next 5 years?
Well, I think about when we started the foundation in the 2019, I put together something like this kind of qualitative roadmap, and according to this roadmap, I think by now we were supposed to have like first applications and first product of TinyML. That is what is happening. Like we see, actually, it happened before I predicted it. So kind of my next thinking, and actually it was back also 3 years ago, that in the next 2-3 years, we're going to start seeing what people call killer applications, right? And it looks like kind of the way it evolves today. Most of these initial killer applications will be in the industrial IoT, in the, like what we discussed, predictive maintenance, anomaly detection, this type of things. It's really growing strong there. I think the next one, killer one, will probably be in the healthcare, that type of thing. And once we see this kind of killer applications, there will be strong pull force that is going to create this enormous momentum into the trillion of devices. Basically, the whole pie is going to be growing so super fast. Again, we already have quite healthy products, technologies, companies, M&A activities, venture people in this space. Companies are making profit. That's kind of what we predicted. Again, next milestone will be killer apps, like for example, iPhone, that's a killer app, right? Before iPhone, there were a bunch of phones. iPhone came, the whole market kind of took off, right? So that's kind of the killer app thing. And once you have a killer app, it's going to create all kind of interesting things around this type of applications, these ecosystems. And also, I think will be also interesting to see where technologies, we're talking about technology, but TinyML is going to create, and I'm pretty sure about this, and it's going to be even more interesting, some very interesting business models on data. How like what I said, how if you have this feedback things happening in the in the hotel or in the hospital, you're generating a lot of data, because the beauty of TinyML, it's about data. I mean, 95% of the data in the world is in the TinyML space. We are digging this data, and once you have this data, business-minded people will start thinking like, how do you create this data for new business models? Because it's all about value, but will be some interesting ideas coming on the business model as well, just like Airbnb type of business models, right? Because what is Airbnb? Just you have an app and you have people there. Or what is Uber? You have GPS, car, and app. So we're going to see a lot of interesting business model coming as well. Maybe after we have this kind of wave of killer apps after this. So that's kind of my vision. And a lot of also innovations, kind of for me being a technologist, I should not ignore the technological innovations. I think we're going to see a lot of cool stuff happening on the technology and science side of TinyML, which we already see in like people doing analog compute, people doing neuromorphic compute, people doing compute in memory, smaller models. I think all of these ultra low power sensors, new battery type of technologies, energy scavenging. I mean, all of the things are happening in parallel. That's again a fascinating field. I'm a technologist, I'm a scientist. I love this, but again, my heart these days is more on the impact side of things, like how are we going to connect this technology to the world of values and make a big impact there. And I think TinyML has a strong potential.
Yeah, I mean, it is colossal. You talk about app front and Airbnb, like your Ubers, your marketplaces, right? You create the tools in the gold rush. You don't get the gold, right? And I think something that resonates a lot with me here is this coalescing of different forces at the moment, right? You talk about energy harvesting, right? If it wasn't for energy harvesting technology, if it wasn't for lithium technology, if it wasn't for nano processors, if it wasn't for all of these things converging at the same time, we couldn't do it. So it's amazing, and it's an amazing time to be in, and that's why we need people in the foundation. That's why we need people to come together so we can take this and actually bring it to the next stage and do the other things. So, Evgeni, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We always finish this show with some quick fire questions to get to know you a little bit more, but it's been absolutely amazing. So I've got a couple of questions for you. They're quick fire, but they might not be quick answers, so we'll see how we get on with it. First one is, what does Industry 5.0 mean to you?
Well, I think it's probably taking a human out of the equation and make it kind of more running in a self-organized way. It's kind of in a very broad way.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Favorite piece of software that you use on a daily basis that you couldn't live without?
I think I would answer it the other way. I think I would prefer to live without software in my in my everyday life, just to make sure it happens in the background.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And in fact, that's actually interesting. Some of the models that ML people are developing now is basically it's text, speech to text, and then text to code, right? It's like crazy what is happening in this world, like transformer type of models and so on. It's what I said like a minute ago. It's not a science fiction. It just happens. Like I can talk to you like, hey, I would like to program such and such. So then the speech goes to text, and the text converted to the code, and I don't really need to know anything. Right? That is probably going to be happening in the next 5 years. It's becoming visible now.
Do you know what? Just not to hijack this, because I have one last question for you. But the low code, no code revolution will absolutely fuel the tech industry, because at the moment, if you think about it, it's been quite esoteric, right? You know, my background is in embedded engineering. Everyone that we've had on the show has come from a coding background of sorts, or can do some high-level coding of some description. But until we can get the kids of today coding in a way that they can do it through natural language processing and converting that to code, you know, we're never going to see the true realization of it. So yeah, you're right. I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be astronomical what we can do.
And I think as a side comment, kind of a message to younger people in the audience who are just getting into this field, and kind of people who are thinking about getting degrees in this field, my recommendation would be focus not so much on the tools and languages, focus more on problem solving. Build your mindset, wire yourself while you are studying things, more kind of focusing on problems, not on the technology, because technology is evolving so fast. It's hard to keep up. It's getting easier to use. It's really how to use technologies to solve problems. I think that's what we all need to be thinking.
It's one of the main things that the World Economic Forum spoke about in the future jobs was big unsolved meaningful problems, right? You know, problem solving, right? And I think you're absolutely right. Last question, Evgeni. What book would you recommend that people go out and buy right now? Fiction or non-fiction?
Well, right now there are many good books. I mean, I wish I have more time to read them. It's just on my to-do list. Just like this New Year resolution was like less screen time, more books. And I've been following this for the first 2 months. And like yesterday, I must confess, I work until midnight on the screen. So I would rather love to read books instead. So right now I am reading a book. And it's just a snapshot. I'm reading the book Scale and Speed. It's really it's a blueprint. You aware of this book? It's like
no.
It's basically a blueprint how we're going to save the planet. It's with specific OKRs with some numbers. Just came out. It's a very interesting but also very important book. It gives a perspective on some of the topics we discussed today. And I also have a tendency to read multiple books at the same time. That's kind of how my brain works. I'm kind of jumping between different things, but that's
yeah. And I guess the important thing is not to get them confused, right? So you end up getting lost in your own books. But no, that's fantastic. I'm definitely going to look into that, and when I find it, we'll drop that in the comments as well. Evgeni, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up your time today to talk about TinyML Foundation. We're going to put all the links in the comments, guys, so you can follow up, check out the socials, get involved in the foundation. It's doing some amazing stuff. And if you weren't sold during this episode, go and have a look online. But I can't imagine anyone not wanting to get involved after you've spoken about it, Evgeni. So thank you once more.
Yeah, thank you for having me here again, Tom. I think I'm really glad the 5V is really focusing on the topics we discussed today, really on the values, on the diversity, on the planet. I think those are the things we need to drum up more together. And again, the good news there are technology that can help us, and there is the energy in the world to do this kind of good things. We just need to connect all of this and multiply the positive effect. Thank you again.
Thank you, Evgeni.